In the previous section, we added a few more capabilities to the list, but we were still dealing with static data. So in this section, what we're going to do is we're going to bring in data from a database. The starting point for that data is going to be this spreadsheet. We're going to import this spreadsheet, which is the familiar data around the country data that we're working with. We're going to import that into the Jigx environment and then show how we can then use database logic to bring that into our jig. Let's get going. Okay, in order to get our spreadsheet data into Jigx, we're going to load that spreadsheet data into the Jigx dynamic data solution. You can access that from Jigx Management. We'll go through Jigx Management in a later video, so I'm going to go through it pretty quickly here. Once you're in Jigx Management, head to the Solutions page, select your solution, go to the Data page. This will give you a list of available tables for your solution. In this case, we want the country solution. And from here, what I can do is I can upload the data, which is just that CSV file that we looked at earlier. So once I have that, I can literally just drag that into there, add those rows, and save them, and we're done. So you recall for our country example, we had static data embedded inside the jig. What we're going to do is get rid of that and then replace it with a database call to our dynamic data, which we just configured. So let's go ahead and get rid of the static data that we have here configured within the jig. Great, so what we'll do is we'll go ahead and select this static data and just delete it. And then we can use IntelliSense again to define the new data source. So let's go ahead and do that. So we'll use our control spacebar. We know that we want a data source. We'll use it again. We need a data source name. We're going to call that country-data-dd. We'll use this. We know we want dynamic data. The data provider is that. The table name, if we remember from looking at what we defined in management, I think is called country. So we'll do that. So this just leaves us with the query to define. I am going to use a bit of a trick, the cake I baked earlier. So I'm just going to get rid of the query that we've got defined here. And I am going to paste in a query that I baked earlier. You can see it's a very, very simple query. It's just basically selecting the columns from that spreadsheet data, which is now defined in our dynamic database solution. And that's it, we're configured. Okay, so all that's left for us to do is to publish this. So here we are back in our solution, this time with dynamic data. We can go across to our deployment tools and deploy this, which we're doing. We can see it publishing there. It's published. We can see it's published, but of course the solution looks exactly the same. And that's because the data is exactly the same. Just instead of coming from static data, it is coming now from our dynamic data database. So what we can do is let's just make use of our SQL to order this data, and then we can see that actually this really is coming from a database. So let's go and add our order by clause. I'm going to paste that in there. I'm going to redeploy. We can see that our countries are now sorted. Let's take a quick moment to look at dynamic data configuration. We can see how we've configured that lines 16 to 33 using the dynamic data provider, and the entity or the table we're selecting from is default country. Where do we configure that? If you go to the default file under databases and you look in there, you will see the dynamic tables or the dynamic data tables that we're working with. Country is there. You can add more tables to that. As soon as you publish the solution, those tables will become available for you in management, where you can add or import data. Once you have those tables, you can then just write SQL against those tables. A full description of dynamic data is available at the URL below. Our solution is now complete. It's starting to look like a solution. Let's move on to the next section.